Low key think moving out might be the cheat code. If you want to work like you've never worked before, move out. Sometimes you need to be thrown into the deep end, and that's what I did. Don't get me wrong. I wish I would have been one of those people that, you know, you hear other people's advice and you just take it at face value and you do what the more responsible thing the first time.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, you know that phrase, those who don't hear must feel? I
Phil.
must feel. Yeah, I must feel. It's not until I moved out that I've
Well,
worked the hardest that I've ever worked in my entire life.
well
It
done.
it puts into perspective how hard I need to work to have more because I must have more. Like I'm not going back.
I love this because there's so much vim and energy in what's being shared here. And the reality is there's so much of it that is super true. Like you have to be put into the deep end in order to succeed. But I don't think you have to move out in order to be put into the deep end. I just think, like was shared, like people are different. And it is an old, I believe it's a Caribbean adage that says those who don't hear will feel, or those who don't hear must feel. But the reality is, I don't think everybody needs to feel in order for what they felt to become real. Because sometimes you felt in the past, sometimes you've been through stuff before, sometimes you've been through stuff which have already made you like more open to development, which has already made you put yourself in a place where you said, you know what, I'm going to listen, or I'm going to take heed, or I'm going to do the right thing regardless of what everyone else is doing. I'm not going to fall to peer pressure. I'm actually going to do the thing that's best for me, or best for mine, or best for my next generation, or best for my community, or best for my family, right? Sometimes you've already got those lessons, and sometimes there's hard lessons that cause us to be even better at getting future lessons. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's really important to take heed. Like the Bible talks about this in Proverbs, from Proverbs chapter 1 all the way to Proverbs 31. It says it again and again and again. A wise man will receive counsel. It says, in a multitude of counsel there is safety. It has all these verses in just Proverbs chapter 1 to 31 alone, which is consistently telling you that the more you listen, the better you'll get at listening. The more you focus on doing the right thing, the better you get at doing the right thing. And I think the real challenge we have is we're living in a society where people haven't gone on the journey to practice doing the right thing. So as a result, they struggle to do the right thing. But you let me know in the comments below if I'm right on this one in terms of your own personal experience. Have you gone through a very similar situation where you started to recognize for yourself, hold on a minute, you know what? It's because I started listening at this juncture that it made it easier for me to listen, comprehend, and follow the actual correct trend since then. And if you are someone who's recognized that that's how it works, then guess what's going to happen? Your life is going to start to look like it works. And people are going to look at you and think, well, hold on a minute. How come she's always getting it right? How comes he's always getting it right? How comes he just seems to know the right way to go? Well, it's not because he just knows the right way to go. It's because he's had practice at making it permanent in terms of performance. And that's what happens when you recognize, you know what, I don't know everything. And it's interesting because this whole scenario, this whole kind of conversation reminds me of a conversation I had with my wife a number of years ago. I remember I was courting my wife. At the time, she was living at home with her mum. And she said to me one evening, she's like, oh, babes, you know what? I feel like my mum doesn't respect me as an adult. And it was really interesting. It was an interesting conversation. And I said to her, well, that's typically how all parent child relationships are. They're not going to change. They can't change unless. And then I started to break down to her how they change. And it was very simple. I just basically said to her, until you show your parent that you are a quote unquote self-sustaining adult, your parent has no reason to treat you like an adult, because your parent has in some cases carried you for 9 to 10 months. Your parent has fed you, taken care of you, cleaned you, bathed you, like done all of this stuff for you for so many years. It's not going to be an overnight thing where they just relinquish their responsibility over you. So the question for young adults, the question for adults, the question for people in those predicaments, even if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and you're still finding that your parent is babying you, like a lot of the time, it's just very simple. It's what have you done to show them that you can walk on your own? And again, this isn't about being proud or prideful in your kind of pushing it in their face. Oh, I can manage without you, or oh, I can do things you can't do. Like that's far from what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is demonstrating your ability to move because you're motivated to be an adult. And as you can show them that, guess what will happen? They will back off. They will back off themselves. And I'm using the term back off, but I'm not attempting to use it in a negative term. I'm like, they will generally back off and recognize, hold on a minute, like, she's an adult now. Hold on a minute, he's an adult now. And this is kind of simply what I explained to my wife. And she took it on board like 100%. And she started operating like an adult. She started realizing there's things she could do that she wasn't doing, or she was relying on her parents to do at that time in her life. She was in her early 20s, maybe 22 at the time. But at the same time, it was that initiative that she took that created the situation where her parents now said, oh, you know what? She's actually an adult. We actually have to respect her as an adult. And I think this is one of the big things that's missing in our community right now. It's the fact that people aren't taking the baton, because in a relay race, that's exactly what happens. You know, the elders or the first runners in the analogy, they run and they do their best job, and they don't have to be out of the race before they pass the baton on. What happens is they get to the place where they know it's the handover, and they still run, but they let the next generation, the next track runner, to be able to start running. And sometimes that first runner has to slow down a bit in order to be able to match the pace of the new runner. Sometimes that first runner has to speed up a bit because they're tired, they've just finished their lap, but they know they have to pick up the pace to keep up with the initiation of the next runner. And the reality is that kind of equilibrium, that pace matching that takes place in the relay race is the exact same pace matching that takes place in all of our life races. What happens is, as your children grow up and they start to show signs of maturity, we can start to take our foot off the gas in certain areas in their life, because we realize, hold on a minute, they've got this. And, you know, for those of us who've experienced, you know, your child going to school for the first time and you feeling like, hold on a minute, I'm leaving my child, I'm dropping my child off with these strangers, right? Or those of us who've experienced your child walking to school on their own, or going to school on their own via public transport, or whatever else it is, like, these predicaments occur in these small silos in order to get us ready more and more as we develop, as they develop, to have the baton being handed over. Because ultimately we all are wise enough to know you and I are not going to be here forever. And the children are ultimately wise enough to know when they get to a level of maturity that they're not going to be here forever. So it is a passing on of the baton. But that doesn't happen instinctively, and there's no school we go to for you or me to learn these things. So the only way that we actually pick up these gems is by going through the motions of them. And this is the reason why it's so important. If you are a young adult, or if you're someone who feels like you're not, you know, performing at your highest level, you're not going out there and getting it, you're not making things happen, sometimes it's just because you haven't practiced already making things happen. And sometimes when you do start that journey of practicing making things happen, the time will come where you will start to walk in a level of maturity that people around you, it might not only be your parents, it might be friends, family, work colleagues, it might be people who have a door of opportunity for you, but they're waiting for you to show them the key. That's the key. The key is maturity. The key is showing them I can do it, I know how to do it. And when I don't know how to do it, which is, I guess, even one of the most pertinent parts, when I don't know how to do it, I'm one of those people who can figure it out. I'm one of those people, without a doubt, who will find out what to do so I can figure it out. And when you showcase that mentality, that methodology of living life, that's when people say, you know what, they want to live life around you. And it's not in the smothering, we want to surround you energy. It's actually more so, we see you have the maturity, we want to be a part of what you're doing, and we want to be a successful part of what you're doing. So we want to give you the resources in order for you to flourish at the highest level of what you're doing. This is one of the biggest things I think our community is missing right now. It's missing the passing on of the baton. It's missing the first racer saying, you know what, we've run a great race, let's hand it over to the next people in the race. It's missing the next people in the race, the second racer saying, hold on a minute, I'm getting off the blocks, I'm making a start, I'm going to walk in a level of maturity so those other people in the community can see me and we can pass that baton on. And I think once we start to tune into that, what we'll see is a lot more of the next generation standing up, a lot more of the generation we're in standing up, a lot more of the generation that has gone before us standing up and saying, hey, who do I need to pass the baton to? And I think that's the conversation that's missing, but that conversation isn't going to take place until we are actually walking in a much more mature place. Now, I don't know if you got thoughts on this. If you have, let me know in the comments below. I'd be highly appreciative to hear what the community has to say about this. Are we a people who need to be in tight predicaments? Because I also believe that there is no growth until we're outside of our comfort zone. But I believe part of being outside of our comfort zone is us committing to learning and us committing to discerning so that we can have a higher level of earning. That's my deepest belief. So let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on this one. Do you believe that we always need our back against the wall before we will actually stand tall? Or do you believe that we can actually learn to discern so that we can get better and better and better and at a higher propensity earn? Sammy ICanWin signing out. Let me know in the comments below. With that being said, if you haven't already, you know what to do. Like, comment, and subscribe and become a part of the tribe. And with that being said, remember, small keys open up big doors. Good day, God bless. I'll see you on the next one. Let's go.
Small keys open big doors.